Good evening. I call this September 14, 2021 virtual administrative meeting of the Bernalillo County Commissioners to order. Tonight we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner O'Malley along with a very special tribute. Go ahead, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. During the moment of silence this evening, I ask that we keep in mind the family of Dr. Joe Valles, who unexpectedly passed away recently. He was a good and loyal friend to many and an extraordinary community leader. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family during this very difficult time. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this evening we have no changes or additions. Thank you.
Great, then we shall continue on with one of our favorite things, recognition of West Mesa Little League All-Stars Fast Pitch Softball Team. Coach Anthony Valentine and players are present. Commissioner O'Malley, would you like to do the honors, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to the West Mesa Little League All-Stars. It's my honor to sponsor the certificate of recognition on behalf of the County Commission. So I'll just read this, and if Mr. Valentine wants to say a few words, or whoever wants to say a few words. The Albuquerque West Mesa Little League All-Stars Fast Pitch Softball Team members are Luciana Abodaca, Gabriela Baca, Myra Baca, Luna Diaz, Aurora Green, Marissa Lobato, Alyssa Mares, Eli Padilla, Cristina Perez, Jenny Quintana, Haley Sanchez, Lola Valentin, and Mayana Venegas, led by head coach Anthony Valentin, assistant coaches Raquel Gurule and Art Apodaca. The 13 members of West Mesa Little League All-Stars consider themselves to be more than just a team and refer to themselves affectionately as softball sisters. They went into the Little League Southwest Regional Championships held in Waco, Texas, with an undefeated record in league, district, and state play, making them the first team from West Mesa Little League to qualify and play in the Southwest Regionals, televised nationwide on ESPN. West Mesa All-Stars competed with class and heart, supported by a huge grassroots Albuquerque community bonding together to get the team to Waco, Texas, through a very successful car wash fundraiser. Congratulations to the coaches and the entire team for their outstanding performance and for competing in Little League regional play. It is fitting also to recognize the players' parents and families as a whole for supporting local softball. Presented this day, Board of Commissioners, Charlene Piscotti Chair, Stephen Michael Quesada Vice Chair, myself, Walt Benson member, Adrienne Barboa member. Welcome, and please, Mr. Valentin, if you'd like to say a few words. You're on mute, folks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, we just wanted to say thank you for the recognition. We wanted to thank our community. Everybody came out and donated money and time and really supported us on social media and followed us. And it was just a huge honor to represent the West Side and to represent West Mesa Little League. We're gonna come back next year, and we're all gonna come back together, and we're gonna win it again for state, and we hope to do a little bit better in nationals. But all these girls are great students. They're future leaders. They're hard workers. They work really hard at softball, but more importantly, they work really hard at school. And you're gonna hear a lot of great things from these girls in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll get certificates for everybody.
Any of you guys want to say anything? They're quiet. Well, we really appreciate everything and the recognition. Thank you very much.
I see Commissioner Casado wants to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say congratulations as a former West Mesa Little League baseball player right here, myself. We're super proud of you. I know what you did was a huge accomplishment. And we're very, hey, the West Side is very proud of you. I'll just end it that way. All right. Thank you.
All right.
The whole city.
Commissioner
Well, thank you.
Benson.
Thank you very much.
Hey, girls, congratulations. We're all so proud of you. And I wasn't a West Mesa alum, but I did go to school at Marie Hughes. So if any of you went there, good job. If not, no worries. Congratulations to all of you. And Coach, well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barboa.
Yay, and I'm just the biggest cheerleader. I want all of us to visually show that we're so proud of you by clapping our hands, giving some woot woots. Thank you. I'm ready to see your leadership continue to grow. Hard work keeps us healthy. Thank you for being a model for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I guess I'll just chime in. I am the commissioner for the east side, which is as far away from the west side as you can get. And so I just want to say that all of Bernalillo County supports you and applauds you, and great job. And we are looking forward to all those great things that your coach talked about. We're looking forward to seeing your future success in every way. So yay you. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so you can look forward to those certificates, and we will move on to public comment and communications. Before we hear public comment, we will proceed with the communications item, and that is the 2020 census data regarding Bernalillo County redistricting. And we have Ken Martinez to introduce and Brittany Poss from RB Inc. to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. It's that time again. So it's been 10 years the census is done. Took a little bit for us to get the census data here, but it's in. And we are lucky to have Brian Sanderoff, Research and Polling, and especially tonight, Brittany Poss to give us the first view of the map, what the census data tells us. Basically, redistricting is under that concept of one person, one vote, so that each person is basically represented the same, like so that each commission district is roughly the same size. They can get out of kilter over 10 years, so you have to take a look at the census and try to get them all back to about the same size. So Brittany will go over that with you and let us know that there are some concepts in redistricting, and Brittany can lay those out. I just want to put a little roadmap. We hope to do this today by way of introduction, and then we'll look at potential maps, probably even have a straw man map that will show what the districts can look like with the least amount of change, and putting them all together, and everybody can take a look at the map, how it affects their districts and your communities, especially your communities of interest. Then get to a map that's kind of a consensus map, and probably adopt that for publication. Allow, once again, the community to review that and look at it. So it's taking us September, October, November, and hopefully get to a final vote on the consensus map in December. So you've got everything done in a timely manner. But we're very lucky to have Brittany. Brittany, thank you so much. I know we prevailed upon you, and I know you got up early this morning and went to Las Cruces and driven all the way back, and you're here so happy and ready to go for Bernalillo County. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm so happy to be here. I'm always happy to talk about redistricting. I'm always happy to talk about census data. It's my very favorite thing. So I appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Brittany Ploss. I'm the Director of Data and Analytics at Research and Polling, and we're providing the professional technical services for the commission to redraw their districts. So as Mr. Martinez said, I'm going to walk through just some general principles of redistricting that are important to keep at the forefront of our mind as we're drawing these districts. And then we'll look at the actual data, which is the fun part. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Go. Not that screen. We go. Okay. So just as by way of background, redistricting is the process of redrawing electoral lines after the 2020 census, after every decennial census, but the most recent one was in 2020. And this is where the Census Bureau went out and counted every person living in the United States. And the reason we redraw the lines, as Mr. Martinez said, is to ensure one person, one vote, to ensure that every electoral district is similarly sized. And it's also an opportunity to sort of rethink districts. You'll live with these for the next 10 years. And so thinking about where communities of interest are and where the population has shifted, this is sort of the critical juncture for that. So there are essentially five really major principles of redistricting. These are equal population, minority voting rights, contiguity, compactness, and communities of interest. And I'll talk very briefly about each one of these. So in terms of equal population, because the whole goal is one person, one vote, we want to make sure that each district has an equal population. And we identify the ideal district population with some really fancy math. So just hold on to your hats. Just kidding. It's just the total counting population divided by the number of districts. And that gets you to what each district should have in terms of population. Now, it's really hard to get exactly perfect, like down to a person, that ideal district population. And so we have a little bit of leeway. And we're allowed a deviation of plus or minus 5% around that ideal district population. Now, we have to be careful how we use that deviation. It can't be used for partisan purposes or to, diffuse the vote of minority communities. But we can use it to further the other redistricting principles and to give us a little bit more flexibility. So the second principle is minority voting rights. And I just want to mention really quickly, the terminology is a little bit weird here. We know in New Mexico that communities of color are not a minority, but we use the term minority voting rights because it comes straight out of the Voting Rights Act. And so it's a legal term, but I just want to acknowledge that, communities of color are not a minority in this state. So minority voting rights is essentially making sure that you're drawing districts that doesn't dilute the voting strength of communities of color. You've drawn districts that give these communities an opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. And the most prevalent sort of strategies to dilute voting strength of communities of color is packing and cracking. And packing is when you concentrate as much of a community of color into as few districts as possible in order to minimize the number of districts in which communities of color can elect a candidate of their choice. Cracking is sort of the opposite. It's where you take a community of color and you spread them out into as many districts as possible to keep their influence in any one district as low as possible, right? So we want to watch out for that sort of packing and cracking. In terms of who is covered by this under the Voting Rights Act, it's ethnic and language minorities. So in Bernalillo County, it's going to be mostly Hispanic communities that we're sort of watching out for. Now there is a caveat to this. So in the 90s, there are some court cases that disallowed race as a predominant factor in drawing district lines. And so I just note that there's sort of a tension between this non-dilution of voting strength of communities of color, but also not drawing lines that are only about race, and that's racial gerrymandering. Next is contiguity. This is pretty simple. It's just the idea that all parts of the district are connected in geographic space. So you can see on the left, districts 1 and 2 are contiguous districts. And on the right, District 2 is not contiguous. There's an island of population in District 1 that's not touching any other part of District 2. So we want to make sure that they're always, all pieces of the district are touching in geographic space. Compactness is a little bit of a tough one because there's really no sort of hard and fast definition of compactness. There's a lot of measures of compactness that have, you know, these sort of mathematical formulas, but they all essentially revolve around how a district is distributed around its center point. And so the perfect district, the perfectly compact district is a circle, essentially. And, you know, any sort of sprawling or jutting that lessens the compactness of the district. But the best way to think about compactness is really a gut check. Like, does this district look weird or does it look sort of compact? And that's a really good measure, is that sort of gut check. And as an example, on the left, we have New Mexico Congressional District 3 as it was drawn in 1991. And this is the entire northern half of New Mexico. And so this is a large geographic area, but you can see compared to the figure on the right, like this is relatively compact. You know, there's a little bit coming down on the west, but in general, it's sort of distributed around its center. So Texas's Congressional District 18 in 1991 is very not compact. It's sort of all over the place. It looks weird. It doesn't sort of pass that gut check. So that's compactness. And finally, communities of interest. So a community of interest is a group with shared characteristics, shared political concerns. Often this is race, language, history, socioeconomic status. And the idea is that you want to draw districts that keep these communities of interest together. You don't want to separate them into multiple districts. This is a place where public feedback is really important and really useful. Nobody knows their community like a member of that community. And so getting the public to sort of tell us what's important to them is going to be really helpful. So that's really kind of the quick and dirty 5 principles of redistricting. I want to note, though, that these principles are often in tension with one another. There's really no perfect map that satisfies all of these principles. So, for example, you know, if you're honoring a community of interest, that might affect how compact your district is. Or if you're drawing a majority-minority district and honoring, you know, minority voting rights, that might affect your population deviations. So, you know, redistricting is as much an art as a science. And so we just sort of need to stay within the legal guidelines while sort of prioritizing what's best for the county. So now the fun part. Here is hot off the presses, the Bernalillo County census data. So in 2020, the population of Bernalillo County was 676,444. And again, that really fancy math, we divide that by 5. The ideal district population is 135,289. One thing I want to draw your attention to is the right half of this table, which is the percent change in population over time. So from 2010 to 2020, the last decade, Bernalillo County grew by 2.1%. In 2000 to 2010, the rate of growth was 19%. And in the previous decade, 1990 to 2000, it was almost 16%. So the rate of growth has really declined since the previous decades. And this is something we're seeing all across the state. So in New Mexico as a whole, the rate of growth was 2.8%. So Bernalillo County has grown at about the same pace as the rest of the state. Bernalillo County is one of only 13 counties that increased in population. The other 20 decreased in population, but it's small. And we can look now at the individual county commission districts and how their population has changed over the decade. So we have the district number in the leftmost column, the 2020 census population in the next column. The column after that is the 2010 census population. And then the final column is the percent change over the decade. And so what you can see is that District 1, which is that West Side district with those great softball girls, is increased by 1.8%. District 2 had a slight decline. It really amounts to about 100 people. District 3 also declined District 4 is where the majority of the growth for the decade was, and I think that's mostly sort of on the west side of the river in District 4. You can see a little county map. We know there's been a lot of growth there and in Sandoval County. And then District 5 has grown by about 1%. So again, as a reminder, we talked about the ideal population being about 135. And so next I'm going to show you what the current deviations from that ideal district population are with the current population numbers. So District 1 is under that ideal population by about 2%. District 2 is under by 1%, 1.5. District 3 is under by almost 3%. District 4, as we might expect, because that's where all the growth is increased by almost 9%. And District 5 is under by about 2%. So interestingly, 4 of the 5 districts are within that allowable ±5 deviation. It's really only District 4 where we have too much population. But what that means is that District 4 is going to need to shrink, is going to need to lose population, and all of the other districts are going to need to grow a little bit and pick up some of that population. So that's really sort of the highlights. Mr. Martinez did a much better job talking about next steps, so I'm going to skip this slide and give you my contact information. Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you so much for your kind attention, and I'm happy to stand for questions, take any feedback at this time, or you're welcome to reach out to me.
Great presentation. Could you put the screen back on the grid view? Great, so I can see everybody. Are there any
Yes.
questions? Thank you. Commissioner Benson from District 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brittany, great presentation. Thank you so much. So this will be my first go at something like this. Pretty interesting. One of your slides was talking about wanting to protect minorities in voting districts. And you also said that it's common knowledge that that people of color aren't the minority in New Mexico, but that's the legal term for it, right?
That's right. That's correct.
How does that come into play then? If you're, but we still need to protect it. I'm just curious, like what that looks like practically. How do we accomplish that?
Sure, absolutely. Madam Chair, Commissioner, thank you for the question. So I just as a note, we still are under the Voting Rights Act, which is working to sort of dismantle structural discrimination over a long period of time. And so that's why even though people of color are not a minority in the state, we still have a sort of burden to protect their minority voting rights. In terms of what that looks like in practice, that's a great question. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. One is just as we look at lines that have been drawn, are we seeing any of that packing or cracking? Are we seeing, like for example, in Bernalillo County, if we drew a line like straight through the South Valley, which is like a pretty, established community of interest, and we took all of the Hispanics in that district and put them into districts where they're no longer the majority and they can no longer elect a candidate of their choice. I'm not sure how the math works out on that, but as a thought experiment, then that might count as cracking, as taking that sort of voting strength of that community of interest, that community of color, and and sort of diffusing it and not allowing them to elect a candidate of their choice. So that's one way, is to sort of like think about where you're drawing lines. The other thing that is something that you all could think about is looking at the number of majority minority districts that we drew last time in 2010, and making sure that we don't have any fewer than we did last time. And incidentally, it was 2 last cycle. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. As we go along, we're happy to sort of talk through some of those strategies and, talk about where we might feel uncomfortable with a map that has drawn, communities of color in a weird way. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I just want to also thank Brittany Poss for her presentation and really making this understandable and very clear to understand. I guess when we think about communities of interest, you included history in that and economics, which I thought was interesting. When we talk about economics as a community of interest, I sometimes get worried that you get like the same thing. Like if we put all the poor people in one district, then one person has to fight for all the poor, or, what does it mean when it comes down to economics? And thanks again for your work.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Balboa, thank you so much for the question. I totally agree that, we should not be sort of packing or cracking low-income folks either. I think economics, sort of more socioeconomic status, who are you sort of like your neighbors, are we putting, like a bunch of apartment complexes in with like Tanawon, and does that make sense? And maybe it does. So that's something about communities of interest is, it's sort of up to the county and the folks that live here to say what's important and what is not important, right? And so, it's just sort of being mindful of the fact that, folks who live in apartment complexes may have different political interests and want to be represented differently than folks who live in Tanawon or something like that. But yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule that like everybody who makes the same amount of money has to be in the same district. So thank you for letting me clarify that.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I guess question for Mr. Martinez. Was the census data late? Because it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of time here. And then what is the public comment period? When would that happen? And because I'm hearing from constituents that they want to be participate in this. So
Great questions, Madam Chair and Commissioner. I guess we have public comment today, right, Julianne? So we're having this short presentation and there could be comments now. There'll be comments available each time there is a meeting. So we're trying to keep it on the current regular meeting schedule, just so we keep it easier for you all. We can go to special meetings as necessary, but we mapped it out, Julianne and I, with Mr. Shanderoff on his team, to keep it on your current schedule for November, December, October, September. So hopefully that works, and then they'll be able to do it. It kind of starts winnowing towards kind of a consensus map as each of you gets an opportunity to see what your districts would look like. You'll be hearing from your own constituents with regard to the districts and the communities of interest, and that'll help you take a look at that. Then hopefully we get to a general consensus that allows you to put up consensus maps. So the public right now is going to comment on, generalities, right? But then when they get down to the very specific of the maps, it's easier to comment on it. We would hope to get to a consensus map that would be the whole deal that everybody agrees to in November for actual action in December, to give 30 days. We actually counted the days, November 9th to December 14th, we give, I think, adequate public comment time on the final map. And of course, once we know that even that is subject to amendment, debate and amendment when it gets there, although that gets very complicated when you have a map if you want to try to move things around. So hopefully there'll be plenty of opportunity for public comment. There'll also be plenty of opportunity for the commissioners to meet with the experts who are really adept at this. They are incredibly capable. In fact, the capability is almost too much, right? Because it becomes a Tetris, so you can look at almost too many different things. But you'd have the opportunity to meet with the experts at your convenience when they're available. They're also doing the state and other places, so we're really cognizant of their time. And I can help you schedule that, and Brittany's already given you her number. If we're going to have 2 or more go, then we probably would want to make sure we comply with the Open Meetings Act, just doing a notification that no business would be done. But I just got to be careful about having more than having a majority of you there at one point in time. So we'll kind of all work together and see how we work with the experts and taking a look at the maps as we move forward. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. It does.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Could I address the second part of her question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner O'Malley, so the census data were very late. So because of the pandemic, they're usually released around April of the year after the census was conducted. And we got them in the middle of August. So yes, this is a very condensed timeline.
Thank you. Thank you for that additional information, Brittany. Commissioner Casada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, looking at the data, it's a bit confusing to me because, here on the Southwest Mesa, we've grown quite considerably since the last census. And to be a bit under the numbers seems a little weird to me because, I have huge apartment complexes that have been built. I think maybe my numbers are skewed. Correct me if I'm wrong, because we could not get, my immigrant community to fill out the census. I think we're missing a big chunk of the community in my district. I don't know that for a fact. And maybe at another date, we could go over, why it's only like a 5% kind of differential when we have historically not participated. As you know, we put a big foot forward. I supported the census. We went out. I did PSAs. I did everything I possibly could to make sure that my immigrant community felt safe. But because of the atmosphere of the federal government at the time, it was not something that I feel we got accurate numbers. And now, see, this is where it comes into play, right? This is where it's going to hurt us and not help us. And we try to do that. I know it's a pretty big question for you to answer, so you don't have to answer it right now. Or is there something I can do or we can do to advocate somehow for changing what I think are inaccurate predictions and numbers?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Quezada, you're totally right. You definitely represent the hardest to count district in the county. And we know this is an issue. This is an issue across the state. This is an issue across the country. What we're running up against is all of the legalities around redistricting, which is that we have to use a certain kind of data. And there is some leeway to use other census type data. And we actually had this conversation during the Citizens Redistricting Committee meetings for drawing the state legislative lines, because there are whole counties that are undercounted, like Rio Arriba and Mora County, and all of these counties that you would expect. And we talked a lot about, are there other sources of data that we could use to supplement, and really, and we can continue to have this conversation offline, but really the short answer is that because of the stringent requirements on the type of data that we're allowed to use, it's not really possible to sort of make up that population. You mentioned the deviations, and there have been states that have tried to sort of strategically use population deviations to account for undercounts or growth, and the courts haven't sort of looked too kindly on that. So I hear you, and you're absolutely right, and I don't have a better answer than that.
I just worry that, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just worry that if they're going to redistrict and they say, well, his district is below, this percentage, and I don't know if they'll even touch my district, but what I'm saying is I'm just worried that if they do, right, if they say, well, he's a little under and Commissioner Benson's a little over, and they shift, So what they're doing is they're saying, well, we're trying to get at that 135, right? But realistically, you're just adding more to a district that, so that's all my concern really is that, it adds more to my plate when I already know I'm way over that, but it's not for us to be able to say that legitimately because we really don't have the numbers. For me, it's just an educated observation, I guess is the best way for me to state that. And so I know that's not on you. You're just the data. You're just, you're putting the numbers together and you're telling us how it works. So I appreciate your presentation and thank you for trying to answer that question the best way you could. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Quezada, I'd also like to say that, the other benefit of being in a South Valley district is, as I said before, the South Valley is really sort of one of the most recognized communities of interest in the county. And so, it's unlikely that something really horrific will happen to that district. It's also the deviation, again, I think it's something around 2%. So, so again, totally imperfect. But I don't think it's going to be catastrophic.
Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Poss, thank you for your patience here with these questions. And I was thinking about this while I was listening to you talk about packing and cracking. So reading in the journal, there have been state legislators who specifically said that they plan to pack and crack, right? What is your experience with that, and what advice do you have on that? And that's based on political party, by the way, not based on race. I'm sure you've read all the same articles I have and seen it in the news and all this stuff. So, what experience do you have with that? What advice do you have for that in terms of this audience?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, thank you for the question. I have read all those articles. As a political and a redistricting junkie, I can't stop reading. Yes, I don't want to tread. I want to tread a little bit lightly because I'm not a lawyer. But I will say that that packing and cracking is a sort of a tenet of the Voting Rights Act. And as such, it's a law of the land. And so I think that that would make a map vulnerable legally. Sorry, Mr. Martinez, I hope your toes aren't curling. I tried to do that okay.
What do you mean that would make a map vulnerable?
Vulnerable to litigation.
I've
Okay.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, I could probably jump in here. I've been through 2 legislative redistricting and actually testified at both of the lawsuits as a representative of the legislature on our process of redistricting. The interesting point then is, it was interesting in 2000 and 2010, it was a government, House and Senate Democrat and a Republican executive both times. We weren't able to come to an agreement, although we camped at Brian Sanderoff's office for 3 or 4 days at a time with 2 representatives. One time it was Joe Thompson and I, just trying to make it work out. We weren't able to get there. I can say this, the courts that have opined on it in New Mexico have said, they start with the concept of least change. So they would look at this map and say, this is pretty easy. Commissioner Benson needs to shed some of his population, and the others are really within plus or minus 5% already. So it would kind of be a fair kind of shading it, but you would want to keep it as cohesive as possible and least change. Least change kind of leads for the least amount of, messing around. So there was times when people wanted to do long suertes, right? Long things going all the way across Albuquerque from the Northeast Heights to the South Valley. That was not allowed. So it would be, yeah, it'd be least change is what they would. So when they were trying to pack and crack or even draw a partisan map, the courts really don't look at that. They look at, let's look at the status quo try to work at a map that has the least change as possible, because when you go out and talk to the voters, the constituents, they like their commissioners, they like their representatives, they like their polling places. You know, I'm from District 5, I'm from District 4, I like my commissioner. So they really want the least change possible. So the courts are very aware of that. So I think they'll look at least change. They won't really look at partisan map making. Now, there could be review of that, but it shouldn't be the number one reason for doing anything. So I think you're absolutely right on that. The articles are kind of interesting. Funny thing about it is the articles I'm reading now are the same articles I read in 2010 and 2000. There's always been a congressional map that creates a pinwheel in the center of Albuquerque and goes out 3 different ways. It's always been an interesting concept to look at, which I don't think it's possible, but Albuquerque is the population base. But so I think you look at least change and look at a cohesive, like I think Brittany said, kind of something that looks almost like a circle.
Thank you both.
I see Parker Schenken. You have your hand up. Did you want to address this issue?
My apologies, I hit the wrong button. No, nothing from my end.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Commissioner Barboa.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Thank you again, Brittany. I want to say that if you were part of the, like, as we were part of the House District 19 appointment, right, a lot of those folks talked about it because there's a chance with it being a newly or least seniority district that it could be up for the chopping block. And that's in the big state legislature, which I'm thankful. And to Commissioner Quesada's point about we, at least as I understood so far, that we, the commission, get to decide on the redistricting lines. So so it's us. Nobody else will get to mess with us. And I think that's exciting to me. And I think we can work together for the best interest of all our districts in all of Bernalillo County. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brittany. It's fascinating hearing your presentation and talking with you. And it sounds like you're open to, if any of the commissioners have any questions, there's ways to reach you either by email or phone.
Yes.
So thank you very much for being so available in this process, which I don't know if any of us has been through this process before, since it only happens every 10 years, but it is quite an honor. It's a great honor as well as a great responsibility. So I am happy that we are partnering with research and polling, and we're gonna do the best we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And so moving on, Julianne, how many do we have signed up to speak for public comment, please?
Madam Chair, we had 2 sign up and 1 written comments received.
Okay. So then I will instruct the 2 people who have signed up for live public comment, and we can then read the written comments as well. So you will have 90 seconds to share your comments. You will then be notified when your time is up. You will then be muted and moved to the waiting room. Should any of the commissioners have follow-up questions to your comments, you will have an opportunity to answer. So Julianne, please call the names.
Madam Chair, we received written comments regarding item 10A from Phyllis Hedges, which will be made part of the meeting record. Those present this evening to provide live public comment is Karen Wentworth and Angeli Taneja. At this time, I only have Karen Wentworth on the line. Go ahead, Karen.
Hello, I'm Karen Wentworth. I'm speaking on behalf of the Alameda North Valley Association. This concerns item 7A on the consent agenda. We're asking that you hold public hearings and release maps well in advance of your final vote on the commission districts. And I have to admit, after listening to the conversation, it's not clear to me that there's even going to be any kind of public meeting in the North Valley where people can talk about and look at maps. Could someone clarify that for me?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. We had chatted with Mr. Sanderoff about that. Previously, there would be kind of a district by district meeting, but with our current COVID practices, what we've had is these meetings by Zoom. So we've noted that on the state level, where we used to go to every little community, now there's a Zoom meeting and every community can come to the Zoom meeting. So there probably will not be meetings unless things clear up a little bit better in each little community, but there'll be meetings available for the public to take part in via Zoom. So we'll figure out how that works, and we're trying to, I'll get with you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Sanderoff's team about how we would do that, but we could schedule some Zoom meetings that would be available to the communities. And as we saw today, we're pretty good at getting the maps put up and things like that. The item 7A, just quickly, I should have mentioned it earlier, is on the consent calendar, and that's just cleaning up the district lines, the precinct lines, I'm sorry. That's not a vote on the commission districts. That's just a vote to clean up precinct lines in preparation for the redistricting. So I didn't want to leave the misimpression that that would have anything to do with the actual redistricting other than cleaning up district lines. The secretary, the county clerk's office is here and can explain that more. And if you want to move it off and have more of an explanation of the consent agenda, that's also a possibility.
Chair?
No, thank you.
Here, hold on a second. I just want to make sure, Ms. Wentworth, are you done with your public comment now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I see Commissioner Benson had his hand up first.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Martinez, can you clarify exactly what is the precinct outer boundaries that are being adjusted and what's the purpose of that?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, that's an excellent question. And Madam Chair and Commissioner, may I defer to Jamie Diaz, who's on right now? And this is his item, and he did work through it with Mr. Sanderoff and Michael Sharp. And Jamie can explain that if you'd like that at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, yeah, let's not get too far afield here. Let's keep some structure. So Julianne, do we have another public comment or are we done with public comment at this point?
We are done with public comments.
Okay. And so it sounds like people have some questions about the consent agenda item A. And so I think that what's the best way to handle this, Julianne? Do we take this off the consent agenda and talk about it, or is it okay to have some right now?
Yes, so if we want to remove the item and place it under adoption of resolution as item 9B as in boy, and then get to that point on the agenda, then we can have the formal presentation by the clerk's office.
Okay. I'm leaning towards that because it seems like there's some questions and I want to make sure that the information gets out there and that, the clerk's office has a chance to go through it, maybe talk about why things were done. If they have a presentation with graphics, that would be a good time to show that. So do we need to take a vote to pull that off?
No, because it's on consent, any one commissioner can pull anything off without
Okay. Then I will just pull that off and put it as 9B, I believe you said.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then, and thank you all commissioners and staff for your willingness to kind of keep a little structure here. So next up on the agenda is approval of minutes. So I will move to approve the August 31st, 2021 administrative meeting minutes. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Benson. All in favor, Madam Clerk? please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
So called.
Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. And so now we are moving on to approval of consent agenda. And so moving item A, 7A to 9B. So Madam Clerk, if you could give me numbers for the resolution and ordinance numbers for the remaining items, that would be appreciated.
7, which was B, is financed, and that'll be AR 2021-80. We'll come down to F, 7F, and that'll be ordinance number 2021-16. G will be ordinance number 2021-17. H will be ordinance number 2021-18. And J will be FR 2021-81.
Okay, so with those changes made, I will move to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Casada. All in favor? And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Aye.
Sorry, here's the little dog. Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
So called. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. And now moving on to number 8, adoption of ordinance amendment to county code, health and sanitation code revisions. Lucas Tafoya and Kellison Platero to present.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is Lucas Tafoya with the Planning Development Services Department. Kel is on the mend, so I am taking first chair on all of this. Anyway, we are asking the commission to make a motion to introduce and approve for publication text amendments to the Bernalillo County Health and Sanitation Ordinance. These proposed text amendments are regarding the food safety regulations. So that's all of the food establishments in the unincorporated area, including restaurants, breweries, institutional food establishments, mobile food vending, and temporary events. The model for these changes is the Food and Drug Administration Model Food Code, and that was from 2017. And so we're just using, actually the one we have in place is an older version of the FDA Model Food Code. Now we're just taking on requesting to adopt the latest version of the food code. And also along with this adoption, it will align us better with the New Mexico Environment Department and the statewide regulations in regards to food. And my understanding is that the city of Albuquerque is also headed in this direction soon to adopt the 2017 Food and Drug Model Food Code. Some key provisions of this ordinance is food handler cards required for food workers. So all food workers will be required to take some training, some very minimal training, and they offer it in multiple languages. And the fee is pretty low. It starts at $7, and then it kind of goes up from there depending on the different options that are out there. And we are requesting that we make an effective date at 6 months from the adoption of this code. So to give people, the industry, plenty of time to implement that. We also will be requiring a food safety, a certified food protection manager to be in the food establishment. So either the owner of the establishment, the manager, or multiple managers have a certified food protection manager. So it's basically the food safety training that the employees are required to take. The manager one is much more intense, a lot more of the why all of this stuff is required. And this is, both of these are offered by the New Mexico Restaurant Association, and there's other entities that offer this as well. The State of New Mexico Environment Department has a website that we just kind of use their information because it comes from the American National Institute's Standards Institute, ANSI. So anybody who's ANSI certified would be recognized for these types of training. So some of the requirements is we're adding a new section for mobile food establishments. It's just kind of defining what a mobile food establishment is, the different types of mobile food establishments, and some of the requirements under that, their base of operations, and some minimal standards, making sure that they have plenty of or adequate supplies, whether it's water or power or those kind of things. We also are, let me see, we are also amending some of the temporary food establishment sections. Basically, everything that we've had in policy, we're just bringing it into the code so that we're not, we'll just kind of have something to go by. Nothing really big on that. It's just maybe getting our old policies into the code. And then I think that's pretty much all I wanted to bring up to your attention, and wanted to see if you have any questions, and I can answer on this.
Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Tafoya, you might have said this already, but why are you introducing this now at this time?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, this is kind of overdue. These are 2017 food code, FDA model food code, and there is no requirement for us to do it at this time, but we would like to be in line with the state, and also to have a consistent regulation across the state. So if we're consistent with the state of New Mexico, and the city of Albuquerque is consistent, then it doesn't disrupt the industry, particularly some of the chain restaurants that have a food establishment in multiple jurisdictions. They're using the same code, or they're looking at the same code.
Madam Chair, I just want to suggest something. I'm in the food industry. I have two small locations, and we've been fortunate with, partly because we're part of a larger group, and so we have to meet higher standards than even the state requires. But I've also seen a lot of restaurants go out of business over this last year. This has been a really tough year. And it's still tough. It's still tough. I'm telling you, I'm still adjusting my hours. I can't be open the hours that the national chain wants us to, because we don't have any workers. We've had to hire underage or high school employees for the first time ever, getting work permits, because we don't have any adults who are applying for jobs. So it's just a tough time right now. And so I would propose that we not implement this right now, especially knowing that, and I think about my managers, they've got a lot to deal with. And so thinking that they're going to have to take additional tests and get additional certifications, and that the restaurants are going to have to pay additional fees. I I'm not saying that we don't need them. I think standardization is great, especially for business. It makes the whole world better. But in the chaos of COVID, and there's still so many questions about how COVID is going to affect, everything between the city, the state, the nation, the world. We don't know, and it depends on who the elected representatives are. Will determine how they proceed during COVID. So maybe they can get a little more standardized in their voice. But in terms of mandating additional burdens for small businesses, I just question that this is the right time to do that. So I'm not going to support this at this time.
Commissioner Casada.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. I also have a lot of small businesses, restaurants in my district, and I know firsthand how they're struggling right now to even staff them. I know restaurants that are now closing at 3 because they just can't staff the restaurants. I agree that we should be in line with the state, but if the city's not there yet, then maybe we do have some time, right? I think we still do have some time to see how. And I agree with what they want to do. I think people should be trained. I think there should be certifications for everybody as they move forward. And I think what the county is doing is the right thing. I just don't know if it's the right time, Madam Chair. I think that, I think we have some time to wait a little bit. And so, I support that comment from Commissioner Benson because I just know firsthand the struggles in this particular industry. The food industry right now is really trying to find their way out. And although this would make better employees and better managers, I just don't know if they have the resources and the time really to bring this up to where we want to be. So that's my comment, and I'm not going to be able to support it at this time.
Lucas, I know you had your hand up. I just have a question. Maybe you want to address this. Maybe that's what you're going to talk about. But I think you said that this, if we approved it, it wouldn't take effect for 6 months. But I'm curious, do you know when the city is planning on voting on this, when they plan on implementing this if it passes?
Madam Chair, I do not know. I know they've been trying to get this through and things that, their priorities keep getting adjusted every day. But I was going to offer a compromise that if the commission would like to do this, is maybe we just adopt the FDA model food code, but leave out the requirements for the certification. So it would still give us a consistent food code with the state, but the only part we wouldn't be consistent with is the certifications, and at least we would have that part of it in place. And then when the commission is ready, we could bring forward those certifications.
Okay, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I was getting briefed, Lucas, especially around this, lining up with the state requirements, we did amend the ordinance some time ago, and that was really to allow folks to be able to prepare certain foods so that they can sell them at like a market, a farmer's market, and that sort of thing. I guess the question is, does this make anything easier? Are they for those kinds of that affects our ordinance, or is this more is basically what we're talking about, more restrictive generally?
Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, this does not deal with the home-based food processing ordinance that we have in place. that ordinance that the state regulation that was passed earlier this year basically says we cannot regulate this activity anymore. And so we're coming back with some a proposal to rescind that ordinance of the home-based food processing ordinance. And so it's just a different type of food, and this food code does not address that.
Okay, I got the two confused, my apologies.
Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Tafoya, can you briefly explain what then would be required of these small restaurants if we did adopt the FDA code? I'm kind of going back to Commissioner O'Malley's question. Is it just additional problems that businesses would have to deal with in terms of dealing with the county government, or does it make things easier for small businesses?
I believe it would make things easier, more easy to understand. That's the whole the idea of the FDA model food code, is that it is developed by the Conference of Food Protection. This is a group of industry, regulatory, and academia folks that get together, and they take in all of these requests to modify or update the code, and they go in there and I don't want to say they battle it out, but they discuss it and they work out these changes. So the FDA model food code is a nationwide standard, and so I believe it's easier to understand. It's much more clearer, and a lot of times when they do these updates, it's just to clear up some ambiguity that was in previous or earlier versions of it. So I believe it is a better for all the industry. It does not make anything more restrictive. It's just more clear.
Mr. Tavoy, would these small businesses potentially have to change their operations if we moved on this?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, no, they would not have to change their operations. I think the only things we kind of added to the food code was, or changed about the model food code, is you would have to apply within 14 days rather than 30 days, because the model food code requires 30 days. We don't need that much time to process applications coming in. That's about it.
So the county would have to move quicker for small businesses?
Right.
So the business would have to change. It'd be the county that's changing, the county.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, that's correct. I mean, we already do. I mean, we have already been very quick to respond, but this just gives us a shorter timeline on that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tafoya. I think you can appreciate the angle I'm coming from, the perspective that I'm just concerned that we've got a struggling business economy right now, especially our small businesses. Our big box businesses, they're killing it right now. The national labs, the big, 100+ employers are killing it. It's the small businesses that are really struggling right now. And so I think these are great recommendations. I just don't know that this is the right time. Even the FDA requirements, I just worry that there would be a unintended consequence that would just make something a little harder for a business that's already struggling right now. So yeah, I agree with your logic. I just I don't think it's the right time right now.
Go ahead, Lucas.
I just will throw one last thing out, and whatever the commission decides is, that's your decision. But we did run this by the the National Restaurant, or excuse me, the New Mexico Restaurant Association, and they have many members. I'm not sure their population of small business versus the big box stores or anything like that, but they are very much behind this kind of a standardized food regulations. So anyway, whatever the commission decides, we'll move forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tafoya. I really appreciate it. And I will reach out to the New Mexico Restaurant Association also to find out more from their perspective. I haven't spoken to them about this, but appreciate it. Appreciate all your work on this.
Okay, any other questions? One last thing, Lucas. It seems like if we move to approve this, it's to introduce and approve for publication. So does that mean that it would be then open to a public comment period before final approval?
Madam Chair, that is correct. There will be plenty of time for comment on that. And if the commission decides and when we come back in 30 days that this is just not where we want to go, then it's dead at that point.
Oops. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve because it sounds like, it's based on bringing it into alignment with state code and federal FDA standards also because of the heavy emphasis on health and safety, and because this now opens it up to public comment and really gives everybody a chance to kind of delve into would this work or not before we make a final decision. So I move to approve. So is there a second? Commissioner O'Malley seconds. All in favor of moving ahead. Linda Stover, please call the roll.
Okay, I think we need to give it a resolution number, Madam Chair.
This is just to, isn't this just to publish? This isn't.
Yes, correct. So item 8A is just for introduction, so there's no number.
No number? Okay. All right. So, Commissioner Barboa.
No.
Commissioner Benson.
No, I can't vote in favor of this. I think it would be a burden, and even a slight burden right now to small businesses. It's the last thing they need.
Commissioner O'Malley.
I'm going to vote yes, and for the reasons that we will have opportunity to discuss this. It's not a final vote.
Vice Chair Casada.
I'm going to stick with no for now. And I think that, once we get more information, we could always bring stuff back. Once we vote no, doesn't mean that it's completely dead and that we're not going to call Lucas and say, hey, we got more information or we now is the time we think we could do that. Can we bring that back? So I'm just going to go ahead and say no for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Well, I'm a yes. And so that fails on a 2-3 vote. And so I appreciate the discussion and the concerns. And so, Vice Chair, I totally understand your point that, and Commissioner Benson, and Commissioner Barboa, and Commissioner O'Malley, let's keep the conversation going about this. Because it sounds like there's some valuable things in here, and we want to make sure that it doesn't hurt any of our businesses, especially our small businesses. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so moving on to number 9, adoption of resolution. And Madam Clerk, do you want to give me that resolution number for 9B right now that was moved from consent agenda?
Certainly, AR 2021-82.
Okay, great.
Chair, if I can just clarify, so item 9A should be AR 2021-82, And
Oh.
item 9B is 83.
Oh, okay, yes, that's what I got confused on. Thank you, Julianne.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so on to 9A, Mission Achievement and Success, the Moss Education Foundation, Inc. and Charter School. Mei Ling to present.
Madam Chair, good evening, members of the commission. The Economic Development staff recommends the approval of an administrative resolution authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve a public hearing and associated notices and actions related to the issuance by the Arizona Industrial Development Authority of revenue bonds for mission achievement and access charter school within the county. I'll stand for any questions.
I know that you sent us a nice detailed email before this. So tell us for the record, how much will this cost the taxpayers of Bernalillo County?
Nothing. Well, they it's a roundabout way because they are issuing bonds from money that they received from APS, which receives money from the taxpayers, but the taxpayers are not, the county of Bernalillo is not on the hook for repaying the bonds.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion on this? Commissioner Casada,
I move for approval, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barboa seconds. Okay, all in favor? And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Oh, goodness. I just have my dose of cuteness for the night.
I think that's the first time a baby's approved one of my
Yeah. we need to
items.
do this
So
more
I think I need to go into like the history books as the first approval by a baby.
oh, Commissioner O'Malley.
What are we doing? Oh, yes? Okay. I got
Vice Chair
distracted.
Quesada.
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
So called.
Thank you, and that passes unanimously.
Commissioner Barboa, thanks for bringing the
now-
baby up because it brought everybody into a good mood and
Yes.
yes, we
Everybody's like,
appreciate
yes,
that.
yes.
Sorry, Madam
You
Chair.
were there for the next piece, would you?
Yes, now the item that we've all been waiting for from the consent agenda. The adjusting precinct outer boundaries, consolidating precincts and creating new precincts in Bernalillo County, New Mexico. Who would like to take the lead on this?
Madam Chair, I'm going to hand this off to Jamie Diaz, Deputy Clerk, that handles all this.
Great, perfect. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. To give you some history on what the commission's actions are dealing with precincts. The only authority in the county that can divide, adjust, or establish precincts is the county commission of that county. So Bernalillo County Commission is the authority and the only authority for the most part that can adjust or divide or create any precinct. From 2010 to 2019, the law was much different in how the county would have to split precincts. With the election handbook or the election laws rewritten to an extent, there was a section of law that was established or changed, and that would have been 1-3-1 nature of precinct maps. Prior to this change, there was only two reasons to split a precinct. And that was based on the number of people who voted in a presidential general election to determine how many voting machines should be placed at the location. That was when we were precinct based. So if you were precinct 1, you had to go to a certain precinct location, such as a Montoya school. You couldn't go anywhere else unless you voted by mail. This law changed and it brought in a demographic to it. This law changed in 17, actually, 2017, and said that 750 votes cast by voters of that precinct in a general election based on the last 2 general elections, or 2,500 persons residing within the boundaries of the precinct based on the most federal census data. So with that, in 2019, we created, or the Bernalillo County Commission created 167 new precincts. We had 441 prior, 608 after the commission created action to split or divide precincts. Now remember, the precinct is a base geographical area on the map. So its outer boundaries cannot be changed. In dividing or splitting a precinct, that precinct is split within those outer boundaries, east, west, north, or south. The outer boundary cannot be touched. And the reason why is because during that 10-year period, the last 10-year period we had, is there are districted offices that create their district, like County Commission District 1, that follow those outer boundaries of all those precincts that touch each other that creates the district. We are proposing, and we have done the work, and we've worked very closely with research and polling in the Secretary of State's office, based off the last general election and the voter turnout and the new census data, 81 new precincts and 81 adjustments. Now we're adjusting outer boundaries for purposes of roads not existing anymore. We do have a couple of right downtown where apartment complexes have been built and the roads have disappeared, but we still have a line there. So the outer boundary adjustments are more cleanup, and they also address part of keeping the community or the precinct together. We had several 15 or 18, and I apologize to the commission for not having that direct number, that ran up along I-40 and I-25, where the majority of the precinct was on one side of the freeway and a small piece of the precinct was on the other side of the freeway. So it was recommended by research and polling to pull that smaller part of the precinct on the other side of the freeway into its bigger part of the precinct. And those really are adjustments. I do believe that our administrator, Nathan, when he submitted the agenda item, did submit individual base maps or shape files for the commission to review. So I don't have a graphic to show you because our base map for the county is still the same. And until the action is created, we can't start changing that base map of the precincts. There's one other caveat to this is once this, if it's a pleasure of the commission to approve this, this does have to be submitted to the Secretary of State for final approval. None of these changes will happen until July 1st next year. Now that's real tricky because people have to run next year. So there is some section of sections in the statute that have been added in for the Secretary of State to make those projections, to be able to put out a candidate guide this year sometime, once the state redistricts themselves. So people can start accumulating petition signatures to access the ballot and be ready for filing day in March. And again, our apologies. I wasn't expecting to have to be able to. I didn't have a visual. I believe they're in your packet. I don't know if Julianne could find one and show it to you, but they're very specific. They're specific to each precinct that we're asking the commission to address. So one last comment, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions. The item 7A, I'm sorry, 5A the discussion of the census data and the discussion of what the commission is going to do as a body to move forward in reapportionment and redistricting themselves really doesn't affect this item that we're talking about, other than we do have some state statutes that we must follow, we must meet, we must get done for that reapportionment to move forward, not just at the county commission level. It would affect every district that touches Bernalillo County. So that's from the United States Congress all the way down to APS, CNM, any other districted board, the state legislature, et cetera. So I hope I've explained what this item is, and be happy to answer any questions the best that I can. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission.
Yeah, and Jamie, I appreciate you presenting, especially on short notice like this. I remember in 2019, it was, I had only been in office a couple of months, and I came to your office because obviously, yeah, that was pre-COVID. And you had the maps out and you showed me everything about how it's done. And I can say with confidence that it is data-based, and it is like Brittany Poss from Research and Polling was talking about. It really passes the gut test that, like you were talking about, that, there's places where maybe apartment complexes have been built and there's no longer a street running there. And so, things like that need to be cleaned up. So I appreciate your work and I have confidence in it. And Commissioner Casada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my only question is, from what I heard anyway, is that we approve it, but then it still has to be approved by the Secretary of State. So I guess we don't approve it. What happens if the Secretary of State, Jamie, if they don't approve it, does it come back to us? Do we got to relook at it? How does that, has that ever happened? I'm just asking a hypothetical question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner. I don't recall it ever happening. And I believe this second step is just for the state to approve it, to make sure that it's a base map of the state within the county, because as we are a political subdivision of the state. So as I said earlier, we do work very closely with Research and Polling, who does a lot of their base mapping at the state level. And we do work very closely with the Secretary of State. In my tenure for the last 30 years, I haven't seen a precinct be rejected, with the exception of, I believe it was 2012 or 2013, no precinct divisions were happening across the state because the law was a little unclear. They were dividing precincts based on the number of voting machines to be deployed to each polling location. At that point in time, Bernalillo had moved to voting centers. So that law really didn't apply. That the Secretary of State did come down and ask the County Commission and then County Clerk Maggie Toulouse-Oliver to look at the northwest corner of Bernalillo, and they did create some precinct movement up there, but it was in conjunction with the Bernalillo County Commission. I've never seen them strong hand the commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Benson.
Madam Chair. Mr. Diaz, thank you for this information. A couple points to clarify. I did not see a map in the agenda packet, so I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. I've seen tables and no maps, but then so whoever that might be, if you could let me know if there's something I missed. But then, Mr. Diaz, what you're saying is changing these precincts won't affect the commission per se, but it will have an impact on the different state, House, and Senate districts and APS districts within, and possibly city council districts within Bernalillo County?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, yes, that's correct. Bernalillo County's base map, Bernalillo County Commission controls and is the authority for the precincts within Bernalillo County. So any governing body within Bernalillo County or touches Bernalillo County will have to rely on the base map of our county. So yes, it would give all of those entities a better building block, because the precincts will be smaller and more able to create a flow of continuity to create a good district. And yes, it would affect all the way down to APS, CNM, because it is our base map and they have to use Bernalillo County's precincts in order for their government to district.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Diaz. So it's just difficult for me to see what we're voting on here besides a bunch of numbers. If there's a map we could look at, if there's not any kind of visual representation, I can't vote to approve this. I don't.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, I am not locating one that was attached to the agenda item. So I don't have one for this item. So I don't know if, Jamie, if you have one that you would like to attach at this time.
I wouldn't be able to get to it from, and my apologies, Madam Chair, Commissioner and Julianne. I wouldn't be able to get to it from home on this computer. And our apologies. I thought that our staff did upload all the shape files. It's quite a large file. Definitely, whatever happens today, we will get that entire map field to each commissioner, and of course the county attorney and county manager.
Yeah, I want everybody to feel comfortable with this. Would it make sense to defer this until the next meeting? Would that cause you any problems, Jeannie or Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, if I can speak to that, we are on our second notice from the Secretary of State of non-compliance. I believe I can definitely check with them. And if we can defer to the next meeting, that would be fine. We could push the maps to you. The sooner the better. And again, our apologies from our office. Can you give me the date of the next meeting?
September 28th.
I think we should be fine. I think the Secretary of State should work with us without issue. Even if there is issue, I think we'll still be between our second and third notice of non-compliance. I think we'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. And it makes sense. I remember when you did the presentation for me, I was interested in seeing what would happen in my district, obviously. So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. So I will move to defer this item until September 28th. Is there a second? Commissioner Benson, all in favor? Raise your hand. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa.
Aye.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada.
Aye.
Madam Chair Cascotti.
Aye.
So
So
voted.
that passes. Thank you. That passes unanimously. I'm happy that whoever brought this up as a topic to pull it off the consent agenda. I'm grateful for that, so that we can all be comfortable with this, and make a decision based on all the information that we can just see in front of us. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And so now moving on to approvals. Metropolitan Detention Center, medical, dental, mental health, and psychiatric services for the Metropolitan Detention Center. Lisa Cedillo White to present.
Lisa, it sounds like you don't have audio. I don't see that you're muted, but I'm not picking up audio from you. No. If you want to put the little lever down, that will help.
Well, Commissioner Barboa, this might be a good time to bring the baby back.
I'm ready. I was just giving her some Cheerios, so maybe she would.
There she is.
Yay! Say hi, Ophelia.
Let's all wave to the baby.
Her mom had her in a little bow and she pulled it out, of course. So now her head's sticking up like alfalfa.
Okay, I see Lisa is back at Julie Morgus-Baca's desk.
Yes. Can you, Madam Chair, can you hear me?
You sound fantastic.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So this particular item, Madam Chair, members of the commission, is the award. We're requesting award of the request for proposal to Corizon LLC for medical, dental, mental health, and psychiatric services. Second motion is to approve a 4-year agreement with Corizon LLC totaling $64,871,650.24, exclusive of pharmaceuticals, dialysis, and other items that are considered reimbursables. And also we're asking for the authority to authorize the county manager to approve the business associate agreement between Bernalillo County and Corizon. And lastly, asking for authorization for the county manager to approve all future amendments. In summary, on May 29th, 2021, the purchasing department solicited a request for proposal for medical, dental, mental health, and psychiatric services for the Metropolitan Detention Center. 5 responsive proposals were received. An evaluation and technical evaluation was conducted, and the evaluation committee elevated of the 3 finalists to for interviews. And of the top ranked finalist and the company that we're recommending award is Corizon. They were ranked the highest of those that were evaluated and interviewed. The term of the contract, as stated before, is 4 years with an option to renew for 2 additional years. At this time, I do also want to say that if this contract is approved tonight, Corizon will be prepared to take over the contract on October 17th, 2021. Our current contractor, Centurion, in April of 2021, they submitted a termination for convenience. They wanted to terminate the contract, and they gave us a 6 months notice. So if this contract is approved tonight, Corizon will have a 30-day transition period. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Roseanne Otero, Director of Operations, to discuss highlights, some highlights that were a result of contract negotiations. So Ms. Roseanne.
And members of the commission, as a result of the contract negotiation, several enhancements were negotiated as a result of the contract. Some of these enhancements include a detailed emergency response plan, With this emergency response plan, the medical provider will be required to have a staff member report to each incident that is certified in advanced certified life support. Another enhancement to this contract is we added 10 additional staff members to this contract. One of the additional staff members is a treatment, addiction treatment specialist, and adding with a current psychologist to hire someone with experience in addiction treatment. Another enhancement to this is infectious control. We know now with COVID and dealing with that in a correctional facility, how important that is. So we added a lot of additional language as far as dealing with infectious control, them taking a lead role in this. And with that, in our current contract, we had a part-time nurse that was handling infectious control. In this contract, we added that to a full-time position to ensure that we have coverage within the facility, especially dealing, like I said, with COVID right now at this time. One of the biggest enhancements to this contract is that we added 7 positions that will be certified medical assistants. And these assistants will take over all kinds of observation watches that we currently have within the facility. And this is going to help our correction officers and put them back in the role of providing a security within the facility and having actually a medical person that is handling these observation watches. So through negotiations and with all these enhancements, we're looking at, continuing to provide quality care to the inmates housed at MDC. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission, and we stand for any questions at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you all for your due diligence on this. I met with many of you yesterday morning, and heard about the process and the vetting of this. And I think really sort of the thoughtfulness behind it, the intentionality of having more medical providers of different levels and capacity in terms of physical health and mental health, in terms of addiction treatment, suicide prevention, and other things. I think you've really thought it through. And I think that it's important, I know as you just stated, Roseanne, that it's important to not overburden the staff at MDC and to remove those other tasks of keeping an eye out for suicidality or other health issues, because it's really important to us that, we take good care of our people. And so our people, both who are staying at MDC and our people who work at MDC. So separating that out, giving extra support all around. Also, I was happy to hear the heavy emphasis on keeping the workers who are there already. I know how hard it is to hire people, and Corizon intends to keep all those workers on, so nobody would be losing their job in the change of contract. Finally, I want to say, I don't know what happened because I met with you early in the morning. I know you were going to meet with Corizon later in the day to discuss that email that came in on Sunday, which brought up some concerns about medications and some other things. And so, Lisa, could you just kind of give us an update on did you actually meet with Corizon yesterday afternoon after that? Yes. And address those concerns? And could you tell us the outcome, please?
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and we do have representatives from Corizon on the line. So if I can have those representatives, maybe Karen Davies. I did meet Commissioner. We did receive an email on Sunday, and there were some concerns about different types of of conditions that were not possibly treated by Corizon in regards to, and so I did meet with Karen Davies, and Karen Davies is from Corizon, and she can speak to the items. I do want to say from a contractual standpoint, there are no exclusions to any medical care in the contract, and it was also confirmed with Karen, which I will let Karen speak, that they will provide all the services for any type of conditions, specifically the ones that were listed in the email. I also want to state that in regards to pharmaceuticals, the concern was that Corizon would not or does not order pharmaceuticals on time, and they don't. They skimp on the medication. I do want to say that our contract is set up as such where our medical contractor is reimbursed on a dollar for dollar basis. So they basically order all of the pharmaceuticals, and the county receives the invoices from the pharmacy, and we reimburse the contractor. So we have a lot of controls in the contract. And so at this point, I would like to, Madam Chair, defer some comments over to, or for Ms. Davis to go ahead and speak to the email. Ms. Davies?
Thank you so much, Director. Madam Chairperson and all the county commissioners, good evening, and thank you for having us attend this meeting. We're very grateful for this opportunity. First and foremost, I am also a registered nurse, not just the Senior Vice President of Operations for Corizon. So I've dedicated my entire career to helping others. And so first and foremost, our mission is to provide quality health care. We don't skimp on medications, on visits to specialists, on any service that a patient needs inside a correctional facility. That's what we want to make sure that we deliver to them, because you never know. It could be your son, your daughter, your cousin, your mother. Anybody could be incarcerated. So they're not inmates to us, they're patients first and foremost. Regarding another comment that was made about will we take care of specific diseases or specific conditions? It's about treating the patient holistically. So it's about treating the patient no matter if it's a behavioral health issue, if it's a medical issue, we will treat the patient accordingly and with quality health care.
Thank you, Ms. Davies. Madam Chair, any other questions in regards to, we did, as far as our due diligence on we are very comfortable with the response that we received from Ms. Davies, Corizon, and also the wording of the contract, that there are no exclusions, as Ms. Davies stated, to any care that is provided there at the Metropolitan Detention Center by the medical contractor.
Okay, I see others have their hands up. So Commissioner Barboa. Lisa?
Oh, Commissioner Barboa? You're on mute, Commissioner.
Yeah, I didn't know if Quesada wanted to go for, or yeah, either way, I could go.
I didn't see who had their hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Barbeau. I appreciate that. Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, I did meet with Ms. Celia White, and as you all know, for me to advocate for local and New Mexico-based businesses, it still stands. But I do have neighbors who are MDC employees, and I'm not going to put a wrench in us moving forward. But my concern is that this is the third time we're doing a provider, and I'm only into my second term in a year. And so we have difficulties, as you know, keeping our providers at MDC. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying that it's a difficult job, and I understand that. But what I'm going to ask us to think about as we move forward and as we monitor our new caregivers in the facility is that, you know, we look at local companies to partner, to gain experience, to look at reasons why they didn't fulfill this contract or they don't have the proper credentials to do that. I truly believe in my heart that if we have our you know, our providers that come from within the state, that we can hold them to a higher level. You know, you know, it's not anything against our new providers at all. It's just what I'm talking about is historically, this is what happens. They find themselves in a position and they could just leave. I think that somebody inside the state, it's not that easy for them to do because then it really hurts their business within the state. And so we can really monitor and keep them, I think, committed to the commitments that they are saying that they are providing these services. I don't want to get too much in the weeds in this again, but I just want to make sure that that's something we look at in the future. And how do we create within our own state to take care of our own people and create, you know, again, I like to say, create wealth within people who don't have those opportunities. I want this to move forward, Madam Chair. I'm not going to put a wrench in it. You know, we need our officers to be doing the job that they're paid to do. They're already overworked and a lot of overtime. And so I don't want to make this, you know, too long and drawn out. But I do want us to look in the future, and hopefully I'm not here the next time. I'm hoping that 4 years from now, we still have the same provider. Nothing would make me happier than to see that. And I believe they have the confidence and the ability to do that. But I'm just saying that if this happens for the fourth time, I think we as a commission have to look at what our procurement codes are and the rules and how or what do we got to do to assist local providers to be able to assist us in providing care to not only MDC, whatever else we do throughout the behavioral health system that we've put in place in Bernalillo County. That's my statement, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Quesada. I saw a lot of people nodding their heads. I think we all agree with that. We love it when we can, you know, bring up people in our own county, in our own state, and yeah, kind of keep the economic development and the, you know, the jobs here, the money here for our people. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you, Lisa Cedillo White and Karen Davies for being here for this presentation. I want to definitely shout from the rooftops of all the folks behind the scene, Ms. Rosana Otero, but also Dinah Esquivel, all the folks that were part of it, including Dr. Rivka Stern, who serves on our Addiction Treatment Advisory Board. And I had really asked her, the Addiction Treatment Advisory Board was really concerned, had been bringing concerns to me at the beginning, because as you know, we had medical deaths within MDC, and that is people's lives, right? And so those folks were bringing concerns, and I'm just thankful that we're going to have this. I am so thankful. Words can't express the thanks I am that we're increasing medical staff. We're going to have a phlebotomist that can increase the nurse's time as a nurse and let phlebotomy handle this. There's going to be an addiction treatment specialist. As we know, we constantly talk about and hear about co-occurring diseases, and we need a specialist to be able to see. And then the additional 7 full-time employees that are medically certified that can do watches right? Because several of those deaths or incidences have happened while they're on watch. It's not really the job of our COs to be able to tell when a medical or to tell all the differences in when somebody's experiencing a healthcare need. So this just, I mean, I really, again, I can't give enough thanks to the team that put it together. I know there was evenings and weekends and just so many hours and people even giving of their own time. So I just know, and I'm very thankful for all the thought that put into it. I think I was super excited that they'll be at this, Horizon staff will be at the screening, which we're always proud in MDC that we have the screening at the beginning. But again, if it's corrections officers who aren't necessarily trained or really probably at the pay grade to be deciding, if somebody has a medical need at screening, right? So I think this only goes to serve our corrections officers, the health of our staff. I am, again, very thankful for all those debilling. And I think I also got to meet with several of the folks that were on this decision, and it was such a huge reminder that we are a healthcare facility. This is a $65 million contract. This is the biggest contract that the county gives out. So it is not to be taken lightly. And as commissioners, I actually asked the rest of my fellow commissioners to really make this a high priority for how we monitor. I'm very appreciative to to Commissioner Quesada for his comments around we're at this place again. Again, I think our staff and volunteers have moved incredibly, and we've had more than 10 deaths in this year, and that's a morale, that's people's lives first and foremost, and their families. And then that's also just like the morale of our staff who I've said it many times before, are dealing and working with and providing care for folks that nobody else really wants to deal with. So I'm thankful to our staff there too, and I hope this relieves some of what we all know is already an incredibly hard job to take on. Lisa Cedillo did walk me through the process, the Cedillo way, and I did, when we at first, because I was trying to be so involved, and she told me the whole process, like, oh, okay, I don't have that kind of time. So again, thanks to everybody who gave the kind of time. But really, our last contract, and I think this contract, if there's any silver lining to the problems we faced, is that this contract is even stronger and has all the things I've mentioned that I repeated from what Roseanne had already shared. I just want to keep saying the good things. But our last contract was pretty solid and had a lot of really solid things in it, but we weren't necessarily holding Centurion to that contract and to the details of that contract. So I ask us as commissioners and I know we have several oversight and staff, and how do we have an independent monitor to make sure that all the wonderful things, all the work that's gone into making sure this is a strong contract, that it is going to hopefully relieve some pressure off of our staff and save lives, that we can really monitor and make sure that there is true oversight and we're meeting the needs of this contract. So I want to celebrate that we are here and thankful, and I want to also keep that lens of watching where we can continue to monitor. And I have one question I did for Karen Davis. Again, I also don't want to put a wrench in this. I trust the process that people went through. I did see that there was some recent, as early as January of 2020, some local media specifically talking about Horizon Health and some some problems with them being able to release records and not thinking they were subject to the IPRA, the Inspection of Public Records Act. So I guess I wanted to ask Ms. Davies what that was about, or Lisa, see if there's pieces that we should be concerned about with those articles.
Yes, Commissioner. I actually have Maya Patel, one of our attorneys on the line, who I think is best to address that issue.
Hi, we had discussed this during contract negotiations, and we certainly understand the need for an open record. We would certainly cooperate with the contract with anything that needs to be disclosed. This case related to the Albuquerque Journal and the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government. They were wanting copies of our private settlements that we enter into individually with inmates during litigation. And the inmates actually had signed the confidentiality agreement, not wanting them disclosed. The New Mexico Foundation for Open Government wanted copies of them. So we had to work through that in order to protect the identities of the inmates and protect some of the information that was in there. And then ultimately they were turned over. So we certainly understand that the things that we turn over to the county, things that happen in the McClendon, et cetera, those will all be turned over. We have no intention of trying to hide things. This was a one-off issue related to specific individual settlement agreements with the inmates in medical malpractice cases.
And I think that's it, Chair Piscotti. I just, again, appreciations, and Commissioner Quesada, I will continue to hold the torch for a path for local folks as well. And glad that, thank you for Corizon for being here, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks. Commissioner Benson.
Madam Chair, I guess I just want to make a couple observations that concur with Commissioner Barbeau and Quezada. The first is that this is 65 million. This is our largest contract. It's a big deal. Also, time is of the essence. You know, we've got to have a provider in there. And the other thing is, I would prefer having this 65 million come into a New Mexico-based company. It pains me to see this much money going out. I do take solace knowing that Corizon is going to keep the employees here and keep our staff intact and add to. So we are keeping jobs. But that being said, this is a complicated situation. And at 65 million, the fact that we don't have, New Mexico-based providers that are willing to step up, it's not because there's not an attractive carrot being held out. It's because it's such a difficult task. And so I'm grateful that Corizon is willing to step up to the plate to do this. And I'm with you, Commissioner Quezada. I hope that we don't see a turnaround. The fact that, we've had so many deaths in place, it's a messy situation, and like Commissioner Barboa said, it's a medical facility, unfortunately. And just to state the obvious, if we had the drug dealers in prison, then that would be a better start. Not the people that are medically fragile because of the drugs that are in their system, and the murderers that are just running crazy on the streets right now. If they were in prison, even better. So we've got a bigger situation than just taking care of these people going through detox after they've been arrested, when our own hospitals don't even want them, right? That the only place they can go to is a jail with a medical facility. So, it's a complicated situation. I'm grateful that Corizon can do this. Ms. Cedillo White, I know you guys have been burning the candle at both ends to do this. Ms. Otero, thank you for all your information. I just want to just end with the observation that, our jail, we've got a bigger problem. We've got criminals that are on the streets that are continuing to feed the drug addiction and profit off of the individuals that are committing crimes to pay for their drug habits. There's bigger problems here. I'm grateful that we finally have a good solution to take care of the folks that are criminals, that are going through detox, so that they don't die on our watch when they're probably going to die in the street at this rate, So it's a complicated situation. And I think this is a good solution. I wish it wasn't. I wish we didn't have this. I wish we didn't need to spend $65 million for a contract for a medical provider, but we do, because the world's messy and so is crime and so is our current situation. So, yeah, and especially since time is of the essence, and we don't have local providers stepping up to the plate, I think this is the best situation we got.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I just wanted to clarify something. There is the number of full-time employees that will be employed is over, I want to say it's 105. So there's 105 full-time medical positions. We have 36 full-time positions that are just on the mental health side, mental health and psychiatry, and then the remainder on the medical and dental. So those individuals will keep their jobs and they will transition over from Centurion on October 17th over to Corizon. So there are over 105 residents that live here that are employed under that contract. So I just wanted to make that statement.
And if I might just add one other comment, I hear you talking about the 65 million that's coming not to, a business that's in New Mexico. We did make, every effort to partner with as many folks as we could in the community. And we did. We've reached out to recovery services, to CNM, to work with us on some educational efforts, and to the New Mexico Department of Health. We're reaching out to community partners because, they know the community best, and where are people coming? They're coming into jail or going back out into the community. We want to make sure that we're connecting them to the services that are in your community. So we are looking into developing even more partnerships as time goes on.
Thank you, Karen. So with that, Commissioner, Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you. I wanted to make one more quick request of Ms. Davies. I do believe, because I have been trying to follow this as close as I have capacity to do. I do hope, I'm thankful that we're keeping our staff, and I'm curious because we've had so much problems, and I think a lot of it may have been just from being understaffed, but I also hope there's accountability for the medical director or lead staff that we're leading recently. And I guess, from being out of state, I think that's one of the things that more concerns me, is like the closeness to being able to hold accountable to what you all have now committed to.
And that's a great comment. And if I might, so myself and several members that are on this call, we're here in New Mexico today. We actually went out to MDC today, and we're here till Thursday, and then we will be back, several of us, on Monday again for next week to again walk through the facility, talk to the staff, start that onboarding process for everyone, because we do hold people accountable. And the team that's coming out here, myself, the Vice President of Operations, Maria O'Neill, who's on this call, our Chief Nursing Officer, Mary Silva, who's on this call, our Chief Medical Officer. We are very hands-on people. You could go to any of our jail contracts. I, as a Senior Vice President, I oversee all of Corizon's jail business. And you could go into any of those contracts and they'll know who I am. They're going to know who all of those people I just mentioned are, because they see us. We're not just pictures on a website. We're people who come into the facility. Our staff know who we are. So the phlebotomist, the sick call nurse, again, we're not just pictures to them. We're people who come and interact with them. So we do hold ourselves accountable, as well as those that we're accountable to as well.
Commissioner, you were muted.
I said, thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa Cedillo White and Chair Piscotti.
Okay. Anything else? I just want to clarify how we're going to vote. Do we vote? There's 4 items under 10A. Do we vote to approve all of those at once?
Madam Chair, That's correct. Since they're all on the record and clearly stated on the agenda item, one vote is sufficient.
Okay. Then I will just go ahead and move to approve all of 10A, the medical, dental, mental health, and psychiatric services for MDC, the award to Horizon Health. Is there a second? Commissioner Casada, all in favor? And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson, Commissioner O'Malley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye. And
right.
so, thank you. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And so moving on, we have a discussion item, remote work cost benefit analysis. Bernadette Perez and Dennis Nagel to present.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I just want to do a brief introduction and then I will turn it over to Dennis Nagel, who is our HR Services Manager within the Human Resources Department. And this analysis and report is in response to an administrative resolution that was passed back in February by the commission. And it was basically requesting the Finance Division and the Human Resources Department to work together to complete this cost benefit analysis of a staff remote work model for certain county employees. And I do believe that Deputy County Manager Shirley Reagan sent out the detailed report to each commissioner last week, kind of for your review and in preparation of this meeting and discussion in the event that you have any questions. And so I will turn it over to Mr. Nagel to kind of give you a high level overview and presentation.
Madam Chair, Commissioners. So let me share my screen. So can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So there's a cost benefit analysis for remote work. It was initially called telework, but we've changed the terminology. And back in February of 2021, this board met and adopted AR 2021-26 and requesting HR and finance to perform a study. And the aspects of the study were to the type and number of employee positions suitable for remote work options, estimated cost savings, additional resources that may be needed for implementation of remote work, a timeline for effective implementation, and then the potential for conversion of full-time positions to part-time basis, with the idea that maybe someone working at home would be that much more efficient or effective. So the team was, from the county manager's office. It was Clay Campbell from Human Resources. It was Bernadette, myself, Annette Martinez. From Facility and Fleet Management, it was Lisa Manuel. Finance Division, it was Shirley Reagan and Jenny Haken. Information Technology, it was Robert Benavides. Legal Department, it was Teresa Baca-Sandoval. Risk Management, it was Gina Ortega. And Technical Services, it was Richard Meadows. So we all worked together since February on this study. So the methodology we used was we conducted a survey with county directors, DCMs, and elected officials. And I have to say now that the final report you got has these all in appendices. So if you see that appendices, It's in that report. We reviewed government, private, and academic studies that were done all around the world. For one of the studies, it was interesting. We analyzed the past year and a half when a number of our employees were at home, for 5 days a week, and looked at, issues they may have had, or effectiveness increases, employee satisfaction, all those aspects. And then, of course, we have the current Bernalillo County remote work administrative instruction and guidelines, which is AI HR 10, which came out while we were completing this report. And please interrupt me if you have questions. So looking at eligible positions for remote work, you can see there was, as far out of 446 positions, 139 were eligible for remote work. 223 were not eligible for remote work. As far as employees were concerned, we took a base out of 1,757 employees that were in the eligible positions. And of those, 655 were eligible for remote work. 1,102 were not eligible for remote work. And this is just a quick breakdown of the 655 eligible employees, with from public safety, general services, county manager's office, public works, community services, and finance. So the quantitative cost versus savings, you see here in the first line, the cost for IT equipment, computer equipment, monitors, things like that, where people need to bring things home to be effective at home, works out to $135 a year times 655. So it's relatively, safe to say it's around $89,000 a year. And that will potentially go.
Striving to do the right thing, be transparent. And I'm really, really proud of all our staff. And I want to say thank you to the ones that weren't able to telework. And because I think that it is a privilege, but at the same time, we never took it for granted, and we always got our work done. So, and it was really interesting. I wish we had bloopers and things like that, because there were some interesting noises and and background things in the background that happened. But we all had a good laugh and are continuing to do so. So thank you, Commissioner Quesada, for asking us to do this, because we learned a lot from it. We appreciate it. And thank you, commissioners, and thank you to our public for all your support.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, and thank you very much, then I will just announce that the next commission meeting will be Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 5 p.m. by Zoom from the comfort of your own home with snacks, but not naps. No naps during the meeting. And if there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. And now